Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 115, and in this episode I'm joined by Daniel O'Reilly, aka Dapper. Daniel is one of the UK's largest influencers, as well as a comedian, actor, musician, viral video star and social media influencer. With a portfolio of businesses and a newfound interest in golf, Daniel enjoys a busy lifestyle mixed with business and pleasure. Daniel is a father to two beautiful girls and soon to be married to his fiancée Shelley. With a busy year ahead, Daniel is preparing for his O2 stand-up show and the upcoming releases of his new films. Mental health has become extremely important to Daniel, and in this podcast, he will be sharing how his mindset makes a difference as we talk about the real Dapper laughs. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Will, mate.
So I am really looking forward to this for a few reasons, right? Most people know you as Dan O'Reilly, the comedian, the actor, the influencer.
Yeah,
very funny. You are very, very funny. But we are going to hear a little bit about that. But I want to maybe go places that other people don't go with you on interviews. You know, you've done all your TV interviews, your radio interviews. But we want to take it in a slightly different direction because this has been quite a different couple of years for you. Lots of things have changed, and there's probably a lot of things that a lot of people maybe have seen but don't understand the reasons why you've changed and what's happened in that respect.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's exciting for me. Yeah. Cool.
So, yeah, it should be good. So you are one of the UK's largest influencers. You are a comedian. You're an actor. You're a musician. You've had viral videos go flying around the internet. You've been in films. You've been on Big Brother. You've done a lot. You really, really have. And when we first met, one of the things that really also impressed me was you're not just this puppet. You're actually very switched on when it comes to business, and you know what you want and you know what you're driven towards as well. But I've got to ask the question, if you think way back to when you were a teenager, what was your driver? What was it that you really wanted way back when?
I was really sort of troubled as a kid because my mum and dad broke up when I was young. And I was always, I think, craving attention. I think that's where all of my need to entertain or be center of attention come from coming from a broken home, really. And when my mum moved to Cornwall when I was 15. So I actually moved. I wanted to be an actor and be on TV. So I wanted to do performing arts and I wanted to audition, and London was the place to be. So I stayed when I was 15, and I don't know why my mum I thought it was all right, but I stayed, do you know what I mean? And I moved out and rented before my 16th birthday off a family friend, rented, which kept falling through, you know. He kept selling flats and houses, and I went from sort of renting with him to sleeping on his couch to staying with friends and everything. So at that point in my life, I very quickly become money orientated. The value of money started really meaning a lot to me, as well as what my passion was, which was the performing.
So that was out of necessity, though, right? 'Cause you're 15 years old. You've got to pay your rent. You've got to pay food. You haven't got someone that's going to bail you out. So it was the need for money come from a necessity.
It wasn't. I'm not going to say it was a bad time because I was a 15-year-old young lad. I had all my friends. I had my own place. You can imagine it was carnage. But I did learn that I had to work double hard. So I had various little jobs. I'd done things to make money that maybe I shouldn't have done back then, but I learned from doing that as well, some arts of business. And on top of that, I chased my dream, which was putting my head into acting, learning to act, and singing, dancing, performing. So I was juggling a lot of things from a very early age, which I think is the key to being a successful businessman, being able to move and shake a lot.
So you said that like the original dream was to act, and it's quite funny because I was like many people listening to this. I follow you on Instagram. Most recently, you do your little dances out on the train and things like that, and you've still got it, haven't you? You've still got it. I mean, I think Neo is looking behind Usher's, thinking, "Where's this? He's coming up behind me."
The problem is I'm a dad now, so the dancing isn't as sexy. Do you know what I mean? Like the dance, I watch myself dancing, and I'm like, oh, it's getting a bit cringe, man. I mean, TikTok in general for me is cringe, but it's getting a bit cringe. But when I feel good, I perform. Do you know what I mean? And I entertain. And it's all about expression for me. So acting, comedy, expressing how I feel connects with people that are watching my content. And I'm a firm believer of no one's watching me to feel nothing. When I'm
Yeah.
down, I'm going to share that. When I'm troubled or going through stuff, I share it. And the same as when I'm up and dancing on a train. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's something I've got to say as well. I've been seeing you from afar for many, many years, TV, social media, whatever. When we first met, we met on a few different occasions now. I was like, this guy's real. You know, it's not a facade. You are that way. You are actually that funny. And but you're a normal person, you know. And I think in a world, particularly these days, where so much on social media is people showing their best life, and it's people's front of stage, they're not showing behind the scenes. That's something that you absolutely are you. So kudos to you. What was it though that made you want to become an actor? So I understand now you say acting and comedies, you expressing yourself, but when way back then, what was it that made you want to be an actor?
It may not necessarily have been specifically acting at the time or being a comedian or something, but it was to be successful. And I think the way I visualized success was seeing people on the TV, people that were famous, and what I was interested in was the comedy aspect of things. So I think I maybe put it all together that to me, success was being in a film, being on TV, or performing in front of many people. That's how I visualized my success. And acting for me was from a very young age. I remember going to auditions when I was like 9, 10. So my mum said to me that I actually said to her when I watched films and TV that I was only about 5 or 6 when I said to my mum that I want to, asking questions about what these people doing and wanting to be in films and being on TV. I was very young when I first had that thought.
I love that. And what's really interesting to me is particularly the language you're using. You're saying like you visualize success as people being on TV, people being in films, and because that's how you associated success, that's kind of the path that then you were driven down because you wanted to be successful. And at what point did you then start making the transition and going, well, actually, I'm going to move from acting to comedy? And was it you just realized you were fucking funny and just thought?
No, not at all. No, it was not getting auditions. Being an actor is hard. You have to, in order to be an actor in whether it was in plays, in theatre, or on the TV, someone has to say yes to you, right? So it's up to someone else, and there's no real way you can practice performing in TV or film or anything like that. All you can do is learn how to do it and then do amateur dramatics. Whereas stand-up comedy, I could go and do stand-up comedy every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night and die on my ass for the rest of my life if I wanted to. No one can say no. Well, the same people can say no. They can say you can't come back, but there's millions of comedy clubs. Do you know what I mean? So it was really like I wasn't going to sit around and wait for someone to tell me that I could be an actor. And I wanted to get paid for performing. So I was working as an estate agent because I worked at a go-kart track. This is how it sort of started for me. I worked at a go-kart track when my mum first moved away. And then around that time, I was also working like doing temp jobs. So temporary at Tesco's, temporary at Argos and stuff like that. And I was making money like that. And then I got a full-time job as a salesperson because I thought I could be a good salesperson as an estate agent. I got bored of that very quickly, but I learned a lot. I became quite a good estate agent, and I moved on to car sales because you got a free car with it. So now I could drive away around a nice car. I got bored of that, and then I saw an audition to go and work in Cyprus as a hotel entertainer, and I thought, I'm living on my own anyway. I don't have to ask my mum permission to go anywhere. Do you know what I mean? I'm living on my own. It was accommodation. It was food paid for. You lived in the hotel and you learn shows and perform them in front of people. And it's full of holiday makers as well. And at that age, I was out chasing girls. So it was a dream come true. So I went over there and done that for 6 months. So I learned the art of like doing game shows. And at the end of game shows, at the beginning and end, I'll do like 5 minutes of comedy. So I'll come out and do a bit of comedy. And towards the end of the season, I've done so much comedy that I put my own show on once a night in the hotel. And someone saw me doing it out there and got me back for an audition on a cruise ship. And then I worked on cruise ships for like 5 or 6 years, traveling the world as a stand-up comedian. So I went in quite a short space of time, and maybe a year, I went from working as the estate agent to being like the head host and comedian on a cruise ship and performing in front of hundreds of people. And I was young. I was like 20, 21. And that's when I realized like I can probably take this as far as I want if I focus on it, because it was happening.
And I love these sort of stories. And this is what's interesting, because a lot of people, they wouldn't have known that part. I didn't know that bit about you, like the 5 years of doing those things and working your way up. But the thing that I want to get people to take from this podcast is learn the lessons. They're not necessarily going to go and become comedians, but what it was that you realized that actually you wanted more, you went for more. You wanted more, you went for more. You applied yourself, and the compound effect of that has resulted in getting to where you are now. So where was that transition then from the cruise ships to then sort of that leveling up to the TV work?
What it always was for me was not letting myself get too comfortable in position. So once I'd got to what I considered was probably the best entertainment position within a cruise ship world, which was, you go on as an entertainer and then you become like a host. So you're a host and you become like a cruise director. So you manage the entertainment and then you're a host to all the big shows. And if you have a specific art form, like you're a singer or a comedian or like a magician or whatever, then you really hone your show. And then the next level up from that is the cruise ships book you as an act. So you fly on to a ship, you do your show, you fly off, and then you fly on to another ship, and that's the big money. Like that's what was considered the big money back then, flying on. So then you're doing like 2,000, 3,000 people shows, which you can't do in the UK. That's the only sort of audience you get. And I got there when I was about 24. I was still a kid. And it was all family friendly stuff. But I got bored very quickly there as well, because I was like, this is amazing, but do I want to be famous on a cruise ship? Like I was a big fish in what I considered quite a small pond. And the money was good, but I had to take a massive step backwards in order to move forwards. I had to come back. I had to be an estate agent again, but this time I had some money behind me from the show. So I knew that I had to come back. I had to do what I didn't want to do for a while I established myself in the UK. So I come back, I rented a place. I started my own business. I started an estate agency business in Clapham. I had built that up to having a couple of offices and a few staff within a few years. So by the time I was 26, 27, I'd established a business. And then I was like, right, back to the comedy. Like this is going to start giving me revenue now. And that's when I discovered social media and started going out to the comedy clubs, with something set up behind me to allow me to spend my time doing that. Do you know what I mean?
And was that done intentionally? So I know you're saying that you need to get back and do something you didn't want to do for a little while, but was that intentionally, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build the business, being a business owner, not just a business operator, and then I'm going to go and pursue what I'd love to do? Was that intentionally done?
Because I always knew while I was away for 4 or 5 years, I always knew that this is fantastic here, but in the real world, what am I going to do? Because once I leave the ship, the money isn't going to come in. And what am I going to do? So open mic nights, build myself as a comedian. I'm not going to get billed straight away because it's a completely different world. They don't want family friendly cruise ship, like buttling red coat entertainment in the UK. You've got to be a hardcore current comedian. You've got to have something different about you. So I knew that was going to take time. So when I come back, I didn't 100% believe it was going to happen for me. But I knew that if it was going to happen for me, I need to spin a load of plates in case it don't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that has been my attitude. That attitude served me well now because I've got so many different businesses, so many different revenue streams now. But I have got one core revenue stream that still serves me really, really well. But I'm terrified that one day it will end. And off the back of the failures I've had before, and the way I've seen stuff fall apart before, I'm just constantly scared that plate's going to stop spinning. So I've just got fucking hundreds of them up in the air.
And that plate there is when you say the main plate, the good plate, that is the comedy work. That's the
No, that's not.
Oh, right.
It's not.
Oh, right.
No, it's another business that I set up. When I lost my TV show, when I got thrown off TV, when I couldn't work, when people would stop working with me, I got into business, another type of business. I won't go too deep into it because it's, but it's a great business and it's a lifelong continuing revenue stream as long as all of the parts of it stay together. But so and I was forced to set that up due to not being able to work in comedy. So, and that was my first real sort of kick in the teeth. And it started off very small, that business, and now it's an absolute monster. So, and it supports everything that I do. And it's given me the opportunity to invest and move into loads of different other businesses, which I do out of fear of losing that. Do you know what I mean?
Really? So that's really interesting. So your drivers and the various different things you do now is still kind of born out of fear of if this doesn't work.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
My,
Interesting.
my my missus, for instance, thinks I'm insane because you know, the position that we're in now, financially, and with our assets and everything that we've got around us, my missus is like, why are you still coming up with new things? Why are you like, you don't stop, you and now next year is looking absolutely insane for us from a business perspective. We've got 3 feature films coming out through my production company. We've got a brand new app that's launching that's had like, it's probably going to be up to about 10 million pound put into it through our investors. We've got this run rally company, which is supercar company. We've got the nightclubs. We've got I've got a huge fighting event at the SSE of a new brand that I've created called Celeb MMA, where we're putting together massive celebrities. So next year is going to be insane. And I've had to say, my missus thinks that this year's been insane work-wise, but I've had to say to her, like, I've got a PA now. I've had to say to her, just give me the next few years to go absolutely wild, and we won't need to worry about it again for the rest of our life. So it's head down, arse up for me and my missus at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
Well, look, fair play to you, and so much going on. It's kudos to you. I'm so pleased it's going so well. I want to ask you, you sort of alluded to one thing a moment ago, which we will touch on today. Like we spoke about lots of things going well, and that's great. But for every person that I know that's very successful, and I know a lot of them, they've had some significant failures. What's been your biggest failure to date?
It's definitely losing my TV show and being cancelled on TV. It's the biggest dent to probably my mental health and my pride and my reputation. There's still people. I mean, last week somebody were like, you know, I go and see a counsellor every week, and it's really because of that and because of other things. But it's really interesting to understand what my triggers are and what triggers me to turn into negative thought patterns, self-destructive behavior and stuff. And last week I got myself in a right mess for a few days, and it was just because this woman had popped up on Jeremy Vine on BBC Radio 2, and she was mentioning about how toxic male culture is, and you know, rape culture and all of this stuff, and she's a comedian, so she was talking about people in the entertainment industry, and she was going on about Lee Francis and how she doesn't think celebrity Jews should still be allowed on because it's derogatory to women. And she said, luckily we managed to get rid of Dapper Laughs before he became a thing. And it really fucking dented my ego, and really like the thought that somebody out there thinks I'm gone and that I'm cancelled, that there's a significant group of people that think that they managed to shut me down, really upset me, and it brought back all of that devastation from that time.
So let's for people that aren't familiar with what happened then. So if we go back to 2014, right? Because you had the TV show Dapper Laughs, right, at the time, if I remember correctly, and then there was a particular, I suppose, joke scene, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, at the time there was a lead up of loads of stuff that was happening. My team, first of all, when I started becoming super viral, really big and blowing up, no one else was really an influencer. There wasn't such thing as an influencer back there. There wasn't massive social media stars back then. I was like one of the first people to get 1 million followers on Facebook, and Vine was the app, was like the TikTok of today, Vine. And I was probably one of the biggest followed people in the UK on Vine. And all of that was snowballing. My videos were everywhere, and a lot of people were offended by my videos. You know, the character Dapper Laughs was heavily like a lad culture that failed. It was a guy that tried to pull birds that would fail. Do you know what I mean? So it was laughing at the lad and how dumb us lads are growing up, and the things we say and our banter with each other. But it was a lot of people were taking offense to it, but that was causing it to really blow up and go viral as well. Then I got my TV show on ITV2, and that was really the end of it, because then it was in the mainstream media, and 60,000 people signed a petition to cancel my TV show. And I was arguing with journalists. They just were slating me, saying that my TV show, because I was teaching men how to pull women with comedy, that it was an almanac for rape culture, that I was teaching men rape. I was teaching men to rape, and this really got under my skin and really upset me, because my family's actually been affected by sexual violence, and I took it very personally. I hadn't had any media training, and I should have been told to ignore, like, you know, Tom Cruise don't give a fuck what the Sun writes, right? But I did. I cared what every article and everything was, and I went on stage and done stand up, and I was talking about them, saying that my TV show was about rape, and I said some stuff in there that they used that they really used to take out of context and spin. There was no malice in it, but it was stupid of me to even be talking about rape. You know, I was saying things like, you know, if you want to teach someone how to rape, you don't need to do 6 30-minute episodes. You know, go and do this, whatever. And I was mocking what they had written about me. But it was a very silly thing, and probably a subject I shouldn't have even been talking about, to be honest with you. But it was blown pretty far out of proportion. I ended up on Newsnight apologising about it. So it was horrendously embarrassing.
So because this is the thing that a lot of people don't necessarily get, because when you think about actors, right, you see Tom Cruise as Tom Cruise, but then you see him as the different characters that he is in the various different films, and people see you and people are like, oh, it's Dapper Laughs. But it's not Dapper Laughs, it's Dan O'Reilly, but the character's Dapper Laughs, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, but that's what they wouldn't accept that. They wouldn't accept that if you watch my Vines, I'm like, sex secret. Hey, how you doing? It's me, Dapper Laughs. Listen, if you want to get a girl proper moist, it's like full on animated cheese, right? And it's all written gags. So they're written first. It's not a man walking down the street filming himself being a fucking predator, right? It's a written gag. So like I'll give you an example. One of the ones that caused a lot of fuss was where I say to a girl, excuse me, sweetheart, can I smell your fanny? And she says, no, you can't. And I said, well, it must be your feet then, right? So it's just a gag. It's just me saying, can I smell your fanny? No, you can't. Well, it must be your feet. It's wordplay. And I play a sketch where it's me and a woman. Now, they're playing dumb, and I can understand why people would be upset by that, but I'm not encouraging men to go and do that, or I'm not intentionally encouraging men to do that. There's no malice in it. It's just me taking a written joke and trying to do it in, I wouldn't do it now, but trying to do it in, because times have changed, and trying to do it in a visual aspect, but they'll run with it and they'll say, this guy is going out on the street doing this, not this guy is creating comedy videos depicting this, right? You're right. They would never differentiate between me and Dapper Laughs. It was just me. But then you'd have Sacha Baron Cohen doing Borat, or you'd have him
that's what I mean. Borat's the character,
or you'd have Sacha Baron Cohen doing Ali G, which was fucking 10 times more sexually offensive, or as sexually offensive as me. But you know, that's ironic and funny because he's educated and upper class, same as Jimmy Carr. He's not a working class comedian. He's not intelligent. You know, I think working class comedians that talk about stuff that Oxford educated or fucking upper class comedians with posh accents talk about is different. If you're working class and you talk about it, you're not intelligent enough to be ironic or be satirical. That's your view, yeah? Because that's your view because of your accent, because of my accent, because I'm from South London, working class, and come from a council estate. But if you're highly educated and upper class and you talk about these things, you're being ironic and you're pointing out the problem within lad culture. Not me, I am lad culture. So this was what I was battling with. So I found it very hard to respect the people that were telling me off at the time. But looking back on it now, I understand where some of it come from.
You've got a perspective now that maybe you didn't have back then. And
I've got 2 daughters. That's my perspective now. So I wouldn't have anyone selling them jokes to my daughters. So I can understand from that perspective.
And I think most people, I actually read something the other day. You were saying something saying that if you don't look back at what you did a year ago or 10 years ago and think, what an idiot, you haven't grown enough, right? We've all done it. Every single one of us have done it. What was I thinking?
They're talking about a 26 or 27-year-old man that lived on his own, a single man that lived on his own lived with his mates, or lived with 4 of his mates in Clapham, that was out chasing birds, doing drugs and drinking. Do you know what I mean? That was my filter. My comedy was fucking what was going on around me and my perspective on it. So although I wouldn't do it, everything that I do and comedy is an amplified version of what I'm seeing around me. So of course I was a twat back there. And that's why I think that Big Brother done me some justice, because I really changed public opinion, or what I considered some public opinion, because I was going up every time after that for years, up from 2014. Every time I posted something on the internet, on Instagram, Snapchat or Twitter, the comments were horrendous. I went through about 3 years of people just saying, fuck off, you're finished, leave us alone, go away, pro-rape. For years, man, I had to post something and not look at it. Just post it and not look at it, just to keep my accounts active. And it was only after I'd done Big Brother that started to change, because I think people realised that there was no malice I wasn't misogynistic, and I didn't hate women. There's no malice in it. I was just a twat.
Do you think so? So that at the time you said it was a big failure. It had a big impact for a long time, as you mentioned. You had to post stuff and not look at it. Do you think that because of that, you are as successful as you are now in not just in all areas of business, but specifically in sort of comedy and TV and things like that? Do you think that's had a direct impact, direct correlation?
Yes, mate. It's made me sort of like, I went down where so I was suicidal and I didn't want to carry on, and I didn't think I'd do comedy anymore. And I went on Newsnight and I quit. I said I'm not going to do it, and that lasted for a while. But something clicked in my head that was like, mate.
What was that moment? What was the moment when you went, no, I'm not. I ain't giving up?
It was when I got back with my missus, because just after all of that happened, my father passed away. Suddenly, he had a stroke. I managed to spend some time with him, and he passed away. Like, I'm talking a matter of maybe a month after I lost my TV show and everything like that. And it was, I thought I was at my lowest, and then when he passed away, it was bad. And then my missus we were told we would never have kids because my missus has got really bad polycystic ovaries, and we'd sort of got our head around that as well. And then my dad died, and then she said she was pregnant, and I went off the rails, and I dumped her. I moved out. I was living in her mum's spare room because I'd lost all my money, lost my house, lost everything. I had a bad drug problem. I was on cocaine a lot, and I'd lost all my money, and my dad had died, and I was falling apart. So I was literally staying in her mum's spare room with my pregnant missus and a beagle, my dog. And I thought, fuck this. No, I'm not doing it. Broke up with her and went on the rampage, and just thought I was going to fucking end it all, to be honest with you. I just wanted to go out with a bang. And something changed. I don't know. I can't remember what it was, but I ended up sorting things out with my missus. And it was probably when she started showing that she was pregnant, when she started getting a belly, and there was some sort of good feeling coming back, and then it just turned powerful. And I can remember I think it was when we moved into this new rented house, that I was like, I've got to fucking go. And I started making some small moves and started making some progress, and that just grew into I'm just gonna fucking fuck everyone, man, that thinks I'm gone. I'm just gonna show them, and grew and grew and grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, and now I've just, a couple of months ago, we just bought this massive £2 million house. I got a McLaren outside, and my videos are viral again, so I'm fucking happy. Yeah.
Good. Love it, mate. What I want to know from you is that if there's someone listening to this right now that is in that low place. Now, contextually, they've probably not said something on a TV show of theirs, right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they've got there. If they are in a low, dark place right now, what's your advice to them?
I'd say to them that it's exciting to be where you are, because your life's about to change. I think that once you get to the lowest, what you consider the lowest point, as bad as the cliche is, the only way is up, and you'll never ever be more motivated than you are now to sort your shit out. And I honestly believe that life and the universe, or whatever you want to call it, but there's something out there that's got a fucking horrible way of checking that you deserve what's next before you get it. So if something's put you on your ass, it means there's something good coming, but you just got to prove yourself. And the only way to prove yourself is head down, arse up, and you've got to constantly think good vibes only, right? I've got this show behind me, right? I went through this weird stage of thinking good vibes only. And it was like this point of focus that I had, where I was like, if you're a negative person, get out of my fucking life. Family, friends, people, if you're negative, if you're bringing me down, like, I didn't tell them to get out of my life. I just made sure they was out of my life, right? Anything negative, anything that I could find negative, drink, drugs, people, business, I removed it all. And then I tried to train myself positive, speak positive, be positive, think positive. And then one day I put this show, when I felt that I'd built myself up enough that my fans were there and supporting, I put a show together. I brought out a single, Good Vibes Only. Then I brought this show together, Good Vibes Only, and we sold it out in 4 hours at the Troxy. 2,000 people come and listen to me talk about my journey. And I finished that show with my dad's eulogy, that I wrote when I was off me nuts and I got thrown out of church for reading it because it was crazy. And I finished the show with that. So this really symbolizes fucking being in the worst position in your life and what visualizing good vibes only can do for you.
Love it. Well, look, so if you right now are that person, there you go. I mean, it's truly inspiring, that, Dan. You've said about drugs and the role that they've played in your life. You've said about drink and the role that's played. And when we met, we were having a lovely conversation over lunch when we were talking about how things have changed for you in more recent times. So again, what was the moment that you decided to change, and what's the benefits been as a result of you dropping those things out of your life?
I think it's a bit of a weird journey, because you'd think to yourself when you start making serious money that you wouldn't worry about stuff that was holding you back, but that was the complete opposite for me. When I started making decent money, I realized, fuck, imagine what I could be doing if I wasn't hungover or fucked 50% of the time. And also going through this journey of good vibes only, I thought to myself, the only thing that is going to make me lose all of this, the fear of loss, lose my missus, lose my kids, the only time I'm going to do anything stupid is when I'm drunk or on drugs, or I'm going to come in late, I'm going to be snotty and shitty, and we're going to argue one too many times, because it was really getting to her. And I couldn't handle losing my missus now. I'm into my routine. We're a strong team. And it was a hard thinking process and decision making thing to go through, but I knew that the drinking was my only downfall, and I wanted to be powerful. I wanted to be more powerful, and I'm starting to not see a limit to the success. And that drink was the only thing holding me back.
So but a drink and then drugs. So at what point did drugs stop, and then at what point did drink stop for you?
The drugs stopped as soon as I stopped drinking, because see, the drink,
so it's like a combination thing, right?
Of course. So the drinking for me, it's not like I don't really know what you consider an alcoholic, but one thing I do know is that I was drinking every other night, maybe, or 3-4 nights a week, just sociably. But once I'd start drinking, I had a real self-destructive, and I'm learning.
All or nothing, like all or nothing.
All or nothing. I want to get absolutely annihilated. And if there was the opportunity to do coke as well, it was it was rife around me. All my friends and the industry and everything, it's always there. So if it was a Friday or a Saturday and that was flying about, I'd be on that. And then it would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I'm not really running at 100% till Wednesday, Thursday, just in time for the next sesh. It was a fucking vicious circle. And my mental health is bad anyway, from everything that I've worked on, and the come downs from the cocaine were turning me insane. The days with my kids I was ratty, and a big motivation for me was, what were they going to remember? Do you know what I mean? So I knew that if I stopped drinking, then that wouldn't even be a problem. The drugs wouldn't be a problem. And
you stopped drinking.
Yeah.
And what has been the benefit to you, like, that you've noticed in yourself since that's been the case? Because this is where we're having an interesting conversation. I was saying, I decided to stop drinking 3.5 years ago. I did 18 months and had a couple of drinks, and I've stopped nearly 2 years since. And it was really interesting hearing the similarities between what we'd both been doing. So what, for people that obviously weren't privy to that conversation at the time, what have been the benefits to you?
Work rate. I don't even know how I'm probably doing what I was doing in a week in a morning now, to be honest with you. I'm work rate, and my mental health, I'm pretty much stable and happy every day, right? And I'm up. I don't know if this is just me or most people, but I'm up at 4:30 in the morning now. My mind starts at 4:30. I'm out of the bed between 4:30 and 5, and I do most of my work by 8 o'clock. Most of my written work, my organizing, so my massive to-do list. I email all my business partners. I email my PA on what she needs to do. And I find about 8, once I'm in the gym, I go to the gym every morning, which I never used to do if I was hungover. So it's work rate. And then my days I seem to be able to actually spend my days doing what I want to do, and then just catching up on bits of work throughout it. So if I want to go spend a day on the golf course, I've already done 4 hours work. Everyone else is working for me. And then I just problem solve and delegate for the rest of the day. Whereas before, I'd probably put off work most days and then cram a load of it into an afternoon on a Thursday or Friday before it was too late. So, I mean, I feel like I can do more, and we've got probably 8 businesses or separate brands, businesses and revenue streams running, as well as creating comedy content. And the comedy content powers everything, because to keep the social media engaged powers all of the businesses. So,
and then when you say you're writing in the morning, that's what you're doing, aren't you? You're getting up and you're
yeah,
writing your content every day, and you're
everything. So yeah. So if I showed you now, the very first thing that I do when I get up in the morning is I write in my journal, and that rids me of any negative thoughts straight away. I sit and I write in my journal. And look, if I showed you here, look, 6:17 a.m. Yeah, 5:51 a.m. Yeah, look, all the times on it. Look, that was a bit late. 6:42, 6:02. Yeah, 7:01. Look at that one there. 4:46 in the morning, right? So I make sure the first thing that I do is any self-doubt, any negative thoughts about myself, my ability are gone. Any stupid worry about people that are irrelevant to my process, I write it down in there. So I don't keep telling myself. Once it's out of my head, I stop telling myself it. So I'm like, what about this? What about that? What about this? I write it all down. That's gone. Then I start working on my business partners, what they need from me in the day. Then I work on my PA, what she needs to do for me for the day. Then I work on myself in the gym. And then the creative juices should start flowing from my social media by the time I come out of the gym.
Quickly, on your journaling, so you write down the negative thoughts. Do you write anything else in your journal, or is it just the negative thoughts?
The negative thoughts, and then negative thoughts, what I need to keep hold of this progress. I need to keep moving forward, what I'm confused about. And then when I remember to do it, what I'm grateful for. So
right, I was going to say, do you practice gratitude? I was curious to know whether you do.
Gratitude is quite a similar things, you know, like my kids, my house, my car, my health. So what I try and do is what I've achieved that week. So I sold out Saturday and Friday night at the nightclub. So this was last week. I sold out the nightclub both nights, got £15,000 in sponsors, bought the missus a new car, stayed sober, had a few workouts, created content, stayed positive, and wrote some comedy. That to me is a fucking good week. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I make a small suggestion, if I may?
Yeah, please.
On gratitude. So I have a process that I go through with clients, right? I'm using an acronym, which is PEBEB, right? So it's people. So when I do my day, I'm the same as you, right? I've got it here, right? Here's my and I write it every day, right? It's my little journal there. So I tend to do it for the previous 24 hours. Who are the people I'm grateful for? Right. So it might be someone that I've met at an event. It might be someone that introduced me to someone or whatever. People, experiences. So what experiences have I had in that day? And that might be the experience of going to the gym, the experience of not having to queue when I'm in the shop, whatever it might be, like really simple stuff. Belongings. So we think of the big thing, the house, the car, you know, but what other belongings is it that we're actually really grateful for?
Yeah, like what? Like, give me an example of that.
So belonging. So I've got this pen, right? My parents bought me this pen. Now I could go out and buy this pen any day of the week, but the fact that my parents bought me this pen, it's got a lot of sentimental value, right? There's certain things behind you I can see there that. Like your good vibes only thing, that is a belonging of yours, but it means something. So the things that you kind of take for granted. So people, experiences, belongings, and then the two final ones. These are really important ones. Expectations and privileges. There are dozens of things that are expectations that we have every day. You expected when you woke up this morning for the lights to turn on. You expected when you got in your McLaren for it to start this morning. You expected when you went to the wardrobe for there to be ironed clothes in the wardrobe. Privileges under that would come under the toilet flushing. Right. For example, that's a privilege, having running water that you can go and drink. Like these are little things that most of us, if we're all honest, we take for granted every day. But when we start realizing those things and we actually get grateful for those, it's huge. But the biggest thing with gratitude, so a lot of people, when they think of gratitude, but the reason I'm going to want to go into this, it's beneficial for everyone listening, but it's a big part of the work that I do with my clients, is that when people think of gratitude, they think of all the stuff that's good. But when you can see the positive in the negative. So what's the gratitude in the bad things, the things that haven't gone well? That's when you've truly begun to master your life. Because the truth is, there is no good, there is no bad, there is no positive, there is no negative, there is no happy, there is no sad. They're all ends of a spectrum. And when we can take a perspective to shift us from good to bad, positive to negative, and get into a state of gratitude, our whole life changes.
Yeah, because then you're not affected by the bad or the good.
Bingo. Exactly. So the way that I describe it is, if you imagine like a wrecking ball, right? A wrecking ball that swings from left to right. That wrecking ball at the bottom is swinging, constantly swinging. But at the top, the higher you raise, so your higher self, at the top of that wrecking ball, it doesn't move. It stays stable. So the higher level thinking that you do, the better position you find yourself in. There's a part of our brain that connects the left and right hand hemisphere called the corpus callosum, which in the Latin translation means human tough, right? Now, what it does is it balances the left and right. And we use that part of our brain to balance our perspectives. And when you can do that instantaneously and see the positive and the negative and the negative and the positive, that's when you truly become a truly tough human, because you can go through anything and not be affected because you can see both sides.
That's powerful, and it's really insightful. Thank you, man. And I am desperately tuned in to how I feel and why I feel like it through my counselling. It's really given me like, I know when I'm going either way. And if I could control that, I mean, you'd save so much time on wasting thought, and two, you'd probably just take more risk and be more powerful and move.
We become fit. So take the word fearless, right? Fear less. You don't have fear. You just fear less, right? It's not you've got no fear. You're just fearing less. And what you said about being able to be able to move forward and do those things, it's exactly that, because you can say, right, no matter what happens, no matter how this goes, as long as I'm congruent. So I talk a lot about the work that I do about having a North Star, which is an ultimate goal that you don't achieve within your lifetime, and you make progress towards it every day, and you get your fulfillment from the process rather than from the goal. That's when your whole life can change, because you're no longer having to go, well, what about this? What about that? And any time, for anyone that's listening, any time that you've got something constantly on your mind, you have an emotional charge on it, right? And you can dissolve that emotional charge by doing this process that we spoke about. But anyone listening to this is really wise to understand is that any negative emotion is simply a signal. That's all it is. It's a signal to think or act differently. So either act differently, so we start getting different results, or we think differently, like in this instance, to bring us back into gratitude.
Yeah, so I've been tapping into something really weird where I feel like I'm actually here, present, right? In the moment, right? And I've been tapping into this where I'm like, either think if I'm not thinking too far forward or I'm not thinking too far back, there's this happy medium where I'm like, oh, look, everything's like, this situation right now is cool. And you know what? Just work and focus on this situation. But I find that like all the time, people will be like, Dan, like, or do you know, I'm just not there. And and I'm trying to find this way of not thinking too far ahead or thinking too far back and appreciating the situation I'm in. But the problem that it's got with the lack of alcohol in my system now and the blowouts that I normally used to have is I've got to deal with everything. I can't numb those negative feelings or that worry. I can't numb it, which I used to numb with alcohol. It comes to the end of the week, and what I'd do is, or whenever it was, I'd blast so much alcohol through my system and drugs or whatever, it numbs it for a certain amount, and then I felt like I've dealt with it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's. But
gone. You hadn't. You'd brush it under the carpet, right?
You got sober up, didn't you? Yeah, you got sober up. But so what I'm trying to do now, like you say, is manage, and I can do it sometimes. I can take a situation in my mind, like for instance, that woman last week. It took me probably 2 days of thinking about what that woman had said. Should I put something out on social media? Why did I think that? Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to me back then. Oh yeah, you're still a failure. You're blagging it. You're still blagging it. It still could all go wrong. And I finally got myself to the thought of like, who gives a fuck what she thinks? She clearly hasn't followed your progress. She doesn't know where you're at mentally. She doesn't know what you're doing now, all the different things you do. Who cares if they think that? Like, and I managed to get it out of my mind, but it took about 3 days.
So that's you creating balance, right? So what you're talking about there, it being present is a word that I use for it, is creating equilibrium, right? So you're in balance. You're not thinking about the past, the future. And what you've done with her is at first. So again, for people that are not watching this on YouTube, apologies. I've got a pen right now that I'm putting across the screen horizontally. And if you imagine balance scales, right? So that what has happened is you've got out of sync, right? Because she's made that comment. It's the equivalent of putting like a brick on one of the scale sides. And then you've thought maybe one little positive thought, which is the equivalent of putting a grain of sand there, right? And it does next to nothing. But as you keep grabbing all these different things, and eventually what happens, you keep adding these grains of sand, and then eventually you get to balance, right? Yeah. So there's lots and lots of little things that you've realized that then balance her one comment, because they've got different weighting. And again, this is something you can do in any given. I've worked with people that were robbed at gunpoint and had 300 grand taken from them. We've done this process and they've been in tears of gratitude when they've realized how, like, the power of how well it's impacted them that they just hadn't seen before. And you get to that equilibrium and it's no longer a problem anymore. So these emotional charges that you have, you get to equilibrium, and you can do it in literally minutes when you start working through the process. Really, really powerful.
I find that I can relieve a lot of what I'm overthinking by writing it down. That seems to work for me. But yeah.
Do you meditate?
No, I don't. No, but my mum does. My mum does Reiki and like crystal healing and yoga, and she meditates. And she's always saying to me that I should meditate because my mind is a wild place.
Because a lot of people have a perception. So a lot of the clients that I work with, as people may know listening to this, are what you would call typically very successful people. And actually quite often the people that they're not your stereotypical meditators. A lot of people think meditators with their hands sort of in like their finger and thumb linked together, cross-legged, chanting, but it doesn't have to be that. I mean, meditation can come in lots of forms. Running can be a form of meditation, like moving meditation. But there's lots of different tools out there for people that are maybe in sort of experiencing similar things. A couple of really good apps. Insight Timer is free, doing 10-minute guided meditation. The Brain FM is another really good one. Insight Timer.
Yeah.
Insight Timer is really good to test, and there's a few good ones on there. Brain FM is brilliant. So Brain FM, the way Brain FM works is that it plays sounds that change your brain waves. So there's 4 different types of brain waves: delta, which is when you're asleep; theta, which is when you're deep relaxation meditation; beta, which is when we're just operating normally; and alpha, when we're really creative. And Brain FM can change your brain waves within minutes to get into these brain waves by just listening to the sound.
If I put the creative one on, I could come up with ideas.
Yep.
Wow, that's really good, because I learned something from Robert Heisey. I don't know if you heard of Robert Heisey. He's like an unconscious mind therapist, and he told me that I had been visualizing stuff for a long time, right? Which I didn't really realize I was visualizing stuff, but everything that I'm doing, all of the projects that are coming about now, obviously have been visualized and worked on, but more like I didn't realize that when I run, like that, I never knew that was a form of meditation, because when I run, that is when I have all my ideas and visualization. I always come off the treadmill or back from a run and I'm like, yeah, that would be good, or I want to do that, or and normally I'm set up for the day on all the new stuff I want to do and all the problems I want to fix. I don't know I don't know why I do all my thinking when I'm running, but maybe it's because I'm doing something mundane. I guess that's what you're going to say. Or
no, I mean, the honest answer, I don't know. I'm very similar. So I get lots of ideas when I'm by running water, and I've looked into this. It's to do with negative ions, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Really, running
and also when I'm out running. Yeah, near running. So if I'm in the shower, I get loads of ideas when I'm in the shower. If I go running by the river, I go running out by the river every day. Not every day, a lot of days I'll go running out by the river that's at the end of my road. And I get lots of ideas there. I looked into that, and there's something to do with negative ions, but it's a form of getting into a state where you're you can just let stuff flow. It's a flow state. There's lots of stuff on flow state, which is interesting. Now, talking of water, you've got into something most recently, or more recently, which is quite hilarious to watch on social media. So for people who have got no idea what I'm talking about, what is it and why'd you do it?
Oh, the freshwater sort of dip in and experience. It was what's his name that got me into that. I've done a big podcast with him. He's going to kill me. I've forgotten his name now. Done a huge He's got a big podcast, All or Nothing. I think it's got what's his name? James English.
Right. English. Yeah.
He's an absolute lunatic, right? Had a great podcast with him. I was still a bit of a mess back then when I'd done the podcast. And the nice thing about James English is he always checks in on me and says, you know, he's proud of me and like, you know, and stuff like that. And he messaged me and said, look, you want to try this thing that I'm doing? And I looked at some of his videos, and he's Scottish, and he said, I just thought you're fucking off your tits. Oh, sorry. But I thought, you know, you're mental, you're Scottish. He's out in Scotland jumping in fresh water. And I'm like, but then he said to me, look, if you want to give your mind like a boost, like of energy, and I'm all about ideas. Like I can go through like it's all about my writing. So like if I go like a week without coming up with something special or something that's current, I start getting that self-doubt. It really starts sinking into my mind, and it can be quite hard to get out of that mental state. You know, I want to be positive and coming up with ideas. And he said, look, you'll get loads of ideas if you jump in. It sorts your blood pressure out. It's good for your skin. It energizes you. Loads of stuff, right? You probably know more about it than me, I expect. But the first time I'd done it, I thought I'm never going to fucking do that again. That was horrendous. My body started tingling. It's down at my gym. It's outside. But I sat down after it and I really concentrated on how I felt. I'm good at doing that now when I put my mind to it. And I felt so good, so alive, so ready for the day. And loads of ideas started coming through. So it's part of my routine now, but I wouldn't recommend it it's not for the faint-hearted. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think I'll do it right. You're meant to stay in for 4 minutes. But
well, my doing it right subjective, you know, doing something is beneficial. Yeah. The cold water therapy, I mean, water as I understand it, is below 4 degrees. 2 minutes of it has the same cardiovascular benefit of 40 minutes of CV exercise, you know. So there's from what I got told from one of the Wim Hof top Wim Hof trainers in the world, where a lot of people have heard around the cold water stuff. But it's great. Most days I'll finish my shower, I have a warm shower, and then I finish with a cold shower, turn it on. And there's lots of different reasons why it's beneficial. Yes, there's physical benefits, but for me personally, I like doing it because I never want to do it. So I'm training myself to do the stuff I don't want to do. Yeah, exactly. I've started the day with a win by doing something I don't want to do.
That's what the running really is for me. The 3K is okay, but if I can do the 5K, and I'm like, by the time I get off it, that's why I always say on my social media, I've beat the day before it beat me, right? Because if I get that winning, the rest of the day is like a bonus. I'm like, what man? I'm good. I'm flying for the day. But if I don't get that out in the morning, the day's a little bit of a struggle for me to stay positive the whole day. Do you know what I mean?
So yeah, I believe if you win your morning, you win your day. You know, so same thing we're saying there. Win your morning, win your day. Who is it now that inspires you? Are there people that you look at and you're like, yeah, you inspire me? Or
that's a really tough one, you know, because the only thing that I don't know. I that's a really difficult question because no, not really. I don't feel inspired by anyone at the moment. I mean, there's people that I aspire to be as successful within different sectors of my life. Like, for instance, I look at the level of what I'm doing, and then I look at someone like Kevin Hart, and I'm like, how the hell are you managing that many different projects, that many different businesses, and staying positive and sober and everything on social media and having the time to give back to people? I guess he inspires me. Yeah, I guess I'd say Kevin Hart inspires me. But I'm very, and this is probably a bad thing to say, but I'm very, very money orientated at the moment. I'm from a business aspect. I can see the ability to earn enough money to not have to worry about it again. And from that perspective, there's a few people in my network that I'm inspired to be like wealth-wise. But apart from that, there's no one. I don't know if there's any. I wish I had a more interesting answer to that. But
no, well, look, it's always interesting to find. I mean, some people have had people that have been inspired by it their whole life. Some people it evolves and it develops. It's interesting you mentioned Kevin Hart, but what's fascinating about Kevin Hart is that he is, and for people that know him, super hardworking. Physically, he's got his personal trainer with him, training most days. He's writing comedy. He's got his different businesses, so he is like a shorter, blacker version of you. In the respect of he's doing all the areas that you're doing right now.
He's definitely the dream. That's the like people say to me, you know, like my missus always says to me, like, look, like, you know, almost implying like I've made it. You've made it. Like, what are you stressing about? Why are you working so hard? But I'm not. This is nowhere near where I want to be. This ain't even the beginning of what I want to be. When you visualize where Kevin Hart is, and again, Kevin, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about creativity, acting ability, selling out. Like he does massive films. He does massive stand-up shows. Like from a stand-up perspective, he inspires me. From an acting perspective, he inspires me. But probably the most inspiration I get from him is the work that he puts into on his mental health. Like you can see clearly that he knows he needs to work out. He knows that the mistakes that he's made motivate him, and he knows that he has to keep in a positive place. You know what I mean? I love seeing his inspirational quotes pop up.
Yeah, I think that is extremely powerful. Question for you then. You said about visualization. Yeah. What do you visualize as like, I've made it? Like, what is that picture in your mind?
I think acceptance is a big one for me. So I think that I've got to get to a huge level before I'm accepted again, just as a household name in the general mainstream media. So probably Hollywood, I'd say, probably a big role in a huge Hollywood film. I think that's when I've made it, because I'm the British film industry now. I'm worming my way into, you know, I've made low budget films. I've worked out how films are financed. I've worked out how you create films, produce films, and everything. I've done my groundwork. I've had to get in situations I wasn't overly keen on, and I've had to, I guess, suck a lot of dick, as they say. I've had to do it in that industry. And next year I'm going to smash the granny out of the UK film industry with 3 big films. But then again, if that all goes successful, I'll be happy at the end of the year, but I certainly won't be satisfied. It's Hollywood.
So it's Hollywood. So it's having that Hollywood role, the equivalent of the Kevin Hart sort of. Exactly. He's doing his acting as.
If I'd done a massive Hollywood film and off the back of that done like a 20,000 seater show, then I'd be like, everything else is a fucking bonus.
And I've got to ask the question, right? So just digging under this a little bit, you said it's acceptance. So is in your mind that a proof, evidence, whatever, that the population, the people, whoever it is, have forgiven you for the 60,000 petition back in 2014?
Yeah, probably. As sad as that is, this is something that I'm going through with my counselor. But ultimately, I can't look at that. Is it? Yeah, you know, I feel like I failed back then. I feel like I was on the right trajectory that got stopped, and I always think about where I would be now if that carried on. But I also have to thank the failure for the motivation.
Yeah. If you had the opportunity right now to turn back time and go back to that moment, split moments before you decided to do that scene or whatever it was, would you do it again? Yes or no?
It's a really difficult question to answer, because morally, the things I said, I wouldn't say now. I wouldn't say that now, just because I've got 2 daughters. My perspectives change, and I'm a lot maturer, and I'd like to think I'm a little bit more intelligent with my comedy now. But I think that what I said and what I did at the time, and the loss that I received then, has probably put me in a better position now, because I think that I'm harder, stronger. I work harder. I think that I'm more successful now. I don't know where that train would have gone if it was allowed to keep going as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I asked that question because I'm a big believer that the breaking of you is the making of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone, and I wouldn't want to live through it again. But I wouldn't change it now. If someone did it's a difficult question because I upset a lot of people with some of the stuff I said. I don't want to condone that, but I wouldn't. If someone said, look, you can go back and it didn't happen and you just carried on, or do you want to be just back where you are now and the position you're in now? I'd just stick with now. I wouldn't go back and change it.
Yeah, no, cool, top man. So, mate, in terms of, we've spoken about a lot. And first of all, thank you very much for being very open, very honest. And I know that people will take a huge amount from this. What's next for Daniel O'Reilly? What's up and coming soon that's exciting that people can get to know about?
I've got an O2 show, big stand-up show at the O2. So I'm working towards that now. And one thing I never used to do was practice my material too much purely because I couldn't get into the comedy clubs. No, they wouldn't have me after my controversial fall from grace, So, but now I own my own nightclub, so no one can say nothing. So I'm going to be doing loads of little teaser shows, and then the big O2 show. I've got these films coming out next year, but really, my progress is business. I'm very passionate about business, which is soothing my addiction to social media, which is nice. So I think I'm slowly slipping more into the entrepreneurial route. So there should be some exciting businesses coming out. I just want to stay focused, mate. I just want to get them little wins every day and stay focused.
Sounds good. And if people want to find out about this show at the O2, where can they go?
Just keep an eye on my Instagram. Everything will come out on my Instagram. You can always pop me a DM if you've listened to this podcast. And I'll try and get through as many of them as I can. But yeah, all on Instagram, at Dapper's Instagram, but not for the faint-hearted.
There we go. All right. Wonderful. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming and joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it. And I know that everyone that's listening to will have done as well.
I will see you soon. I don't know if you're at the thing on Friday. I don't know if you're at the boxing.
I am.
I'll see you there. We'll get smashed. No, I'm joking.
Until next time. Make it happen.
Thank you, mate. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.